get reaction now to the possible Saudi explanation that Khashoggi died during an interrogation. Azzam Tamimi is a long-time friend of Jamal Khashoggi. They had lunch together the day before Mr. Khashoggi disappeared. He joins me now in the studio. Azzam, first of all, sincerest condolences of the very, very grim news that we're hearing now at CNN tonight about the fate of your friend. You had lunch with him the day before he left to go back to Istanbul to get his marriage papers. Was he nervous? Was he worried about stepping foot back in the Saudi consulate building?
Not at all. I and other friends who were with us at the lunch asked him whether it was safe for him to go to the consulate. He said, I had just been there on the Friday. He went there. Although they panicked when they saw him in the beginning, but they received him very well and promised to help him get the papers. So he felt comfortable, and he was excited that he was getting married. He took the night flight that Monday to Istanbul. I followed him the following morning. I took the morning flight. By the time I arrived, he had already disappeared because we had an agreement he'd appear on my TV show, which was going to be aired from Istanbul.
Right.
And it took 3 days for us to start hearing from the Turks that he had actually been killed.
And I know you then aired that program, your TV program, with an empty chair. Yes. where your friend should have been sitting. It's 2 weeks on, more than 2 weeks now since he first entered that building. So many stories, speculation. We're hearing that the Saudis may now be about to say that they knew that exactly what did happen to him and that he didn't actually leave the building as they were originally saying. What do you think happened? What's the most plausible explanation?
From what my sources in Turkey tell me, I think they meant to kill him. I don't think it was just simply an attempt to kidnap him that went wrong.
So not a botched interrogation, as might be claimed? I
don't think so. They didn't have, for instance, a medical expert in anesthesia. They had a medical expert in anatomy. Why would they need such an expert? They had a bone saw. What for? According to the Turks, from the recordings they have, he was invited to the consul's office first. As soon as he entered the consul's office, 2 men came in, dragged him, started abusing him, insulting him, beating him, and then they started interrogating him, and that ended with him going completely silent.
You've talked a little bit about how the Saudis have dealt with this over the last 2 weeks, and we'll come on to that in more detail a bit later with our correspondents. But I'm wondering what you think about the Turkish response over the last 2 weeks, and indeed the US response, or the West's response, given the fact that Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, is now in Saudi Arabia to have talks at the highest level.
I think the Turks have handled this very smartly so far.
Smartly, okay.
Because they wanted to have the international community behind them, and they've managed to achieve this. They had intelligence evidence, and they knew that that intelligence evidence probably wasn't admissible in court. So they needed forensic evidence. They were pushing the Saudis, and they got the Americans and the Europeans pressing the Saudis to come up with something. And the Saudis were lying for 2 weeks. They came out with contradictory statements, at times claiming he left in 20 minutes, at times claiming they knew nothing about it. Nonsense. Now we understand, and this is the statement that Mr. Trump made. We immediately understood from the statement Mr. Trump made that the Saudis were conceding, that they were going to admit that they killed him.
Well, let's get on to that a bit more with our correspondents then. In the meantime, my thanks to you, Azzam, for coming in and talking to us at what must be a very difficult time for you and all of Jamal Khashoggi's friends. Thank you.